Go. Hello and welcome to the 6th episode of That Business Podcast. I'm here again with my co-host, Anthony Allard. How are you doing today, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Callum. I'm excited to do this podcast about selling and how to really, finish off the conversions, sell that message to people, and we'll be giving you guys tips on how to go for it. How are you, Cal?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, so for anyone who's not aware, my background is really in sales. I'm very good at completing conversions and getting high-ticket orders in. Whereas Anthony as well, background in marketing, so he's extremely good at generating conversions and also traffic that allows the salespeople to complete that conversion. So Anthony, we've got a few points each today about how to sell. So do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I would love to. So the first point I would like to make is that selling is like an art. You really have to you have to master the craft to really be good at it. And a lot of people think that, oh, okay, so selling is kind of down to like you try this or you try that, but no, you have to really put effort into selling, and you have to try out loads of different things. You have to see what works, what doesn't. And with selling, once you begin to like kind of perfect your own strategy on how to sell, that's when you start seeing results. And there's like loads of theories and different principles and all of this about selling. And you really do have to educate yourself on selling. And I really do think that is an important point. And this kind of leads to my first point, and it's about Cialdini's 7 principles of persuasion. So
Yes.
persuasion is kind of like a type of selling, I guess. You kind of have to persuade someone to be able to sell to them. And everything Cialdini talks about, so he has a book actually, it's called the 7 Principles of Influence.
Yeah.
And he obviously, as like the book title says, he has 7 different principles of persuading people. And I don't want to go into too much detail. I'll kind of give you guys like a definition of what each principle is about. But the first one is reciprocity, and that's having like a two-way kind of message, I guess. I don't know if I described that right, but it's when you give something to someone, they give you something back. And as a marketer,
Yeah.
that is, or like selling, that is like a tactic that has been used by so many companies. For example, say you get, I don't know, like a free taster outside the shop. Once you have that taster, you have like a feeling inside you that, I want to kind of like give back to them. So you might go buy or like one of their products. That's kind of like the whole principle of it. The second,
The fact that you mentioned on reciprocity, I think really the point is to give value to create customer trust in the brand.
mhm,
And also, if you're building a positive relationship with the consumer from the outstart, then it's really good for actually having that trust further down the line, and it will allow you to trigger a lot more customers than you would otherwise. You just would prefer to go to customers who are giving that thing to trust. Yeah, sorry.
mhm. Okay, so the second principle that Cialdini mentioned was scarcity, and I'm sure most people know about this, but it's creating that kind of luxury, exclusive, rare kind of feel to a product. And like so many companies do this now, and it is like one of the main ways to sell, because people are like, this is limited. I want to have this. I don't, because like not like many other people are going to have it. So it kind of adds that kind of luxury feel to a product. And
Yeah.
I can give you some examples of like sneaker brands that do it, like Supreme, Nike. They all kind of release like limited edition sneakers that
So
sell out so quick because they put that it's a limited release. And that's kind of like, that kind of summarizes the principle there.
it's why someone like Gucci, Chanel do so well. It's was like the exclusivity, and you have stuff other people don't. I mean, there's a famous thing, for instance, in watches, of why they only make, let's say, 200 of the watch compared to 2,000 normally, and that
Yeah.
allows them to use the same materials, the same manufacturing process they would often, with a slightly different design. So really the same costs, but that exclusivity allows them to both act as both a beta for the product to see whether it actually sell, and second off to actually give that exclusivity to really allow them to really charge more and create a larger profit margin. So yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So that's kind of like, yeah, that kind of summarizes the scarcity principle that Cialdini mentioned. So another principle is authority, and authority is kind of, again, it's kind of like authority is what it means. It's linked to trust, and you have to, as a brand, you have to make sure that people trust you if you want to sell to them. People usually, they don't like someone or like a business or a brand that isn't confident. They need trust, they need confidence, they need like reassurance from the brand. And authority, loads of ways to do this. If you look at like dentists or doctors, when they promote products, or like healthcare products, sorry, when they get promoted, you always see like a doctor wearing like the uniform. Like that's a sign of authority. People trust the person because they see, okay, wow, if this is recommended by a doctor, it must work.
Yeah,
And that's what a lot of brands utilize.
like 9 out of 10 dentists trust Colgate, something like that, isn't it? Really. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just to quickly touch on this one as well, it can be used really in any sense. It's more about this is really where reviews effectively come in, isn't it? Was
Yes, similar.
if you have high amounts of reviews and high amounts of social proof, that would give you bigger authority in the sale, and will also lead to a much bigger chance of actual conversion. Yeah.
So yeah, Callum, you actually kind of touched on that point now of social proof. That's Cialdini's fourth principle when it comes to influencing and kind of selling to people. And social proof is, again, like you said, mainly about reviews, and it's about getting people on your side as a brand. So people, when buying products, they don't buy the product itself. They don't buy the features. They don't really care about like the benefits. They want to buy the end result. They want to buy the experience. They want to buy the feelings attached to the product. And that's what social proof does, because it allows people to share their experiences with people. If you see on like an Instagram page or a website that a product has loads of reviews, and then some like people are explaining how they felt, the end results, you're going to be inclined to buy it. And that's, again, what brands really utilize with reviews.
Yeah. Yeah, reviews are key because as we previously mentioned, just the social proof. I mean, I guarantee you the amount of people who trust something like or have a look at something like Trustpilot or TripAdvisor before going somewhere, it just demonstrates the amount of social proof that is needed.
Mm-hmm.
And really, you generate that social proof by giving good customer experience to the people who are going to leave you reviews. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Cialdini's fifth principle is consistency. So when selling to someone, you have to be super consistent with your message. You can't 1 minute say, "Oh, this product's really good," and then on another day try sell another product and say that this product is better. Your message will be so like muddled up and confused. People need a message that is like straightforward for a long period of time.
Yeah, I agree with that one. If you're mixing up your messages, people are just going to think you're con man, basically, and you're just talking a load of rubbish. And the same thing goes for pricing, because if you find you have to be consistent with your pricing, because if you go and give X consumer or X client, let's say £2,000 a month for something, and then you go give 1,500 a month for client Y, then client Y, especially with word of mouth passed around, and suddenly you now have your new price set at 1,500 instead of the 2,000 it should be. So you need to be consistent with pricing as well when it comes to selling. Just stand your ground, basically. You can't really allow yourself to be pushed over too much when it comes to those kind of things. Have negotiation room, but don't be run over. I'll come on
Yeah,
to
no,
that. Yeah.
100%. Like everything with like business, you have to be consistent with like the message. You have to be consistent with the pricing. Everything you do has to be consistent. Otherwise, people are gonna start to see flaws in like the whole business plan and the whole brand as a whole, and then they'll realize like maybe what they're offering isn't what they say, and that's where like the doubts start to creep in people's minds, whether they actually, do I buy, do I not? And yeah, so Cialdini's sixth principle is quite similar to consistency, and it's commitment. So when you're selling to someone, you have to be committed to your message. You can't have like a low amount of commitment. So for example, if they say like a counter argument to your point, and then you kind of like fall back easily, so you're like, oh yeah, okay, maybe I do have flaws in it, then people, again, they begin to see like the flaws, and the doubts start to come in their head. So with your messaging, Cialdini says you have to be really consistent with it over the long run. And in the short term, you also have to be really committed to it. You have to make sure that you stand by your message, even when you get like criticism or whatever. You have to stand by the message you're you're conveying to people.
No, I couldn't agree more with that. Yeah, that's very true. And what's the final point of Caldoni?
So the final principle is the liking theory, and this is a kind of principle that it has like a human factor to it, I guess. So it's about kind of we buy from who we like, if that makes sense. So we only buy from brands or companies or businesses that we actually like. And of course that's like kind of like imagine buying from a brand you don't like. Like no one would do that. But when it comes to persuading people as well, you have to like them. And how do you do that? Cialdini states that you have to have similar features. For example, if you're talking to someone and they have like a soft tone to their voice, you're not going to have like an angry, loud tone.
I mean,
Like no
maybe
one
never
does
have
that.
an angry loud
You
tone, but
kind of mirror them.
yeah.
Sorry.
So maybe never have an angry loud tone.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
yeah,
So with the liking theory, you have to get people to like you before they can buy. And obviously, a lot of brands do that. They show a lot of faces on their social media pages. They show like a large range of diversity, and yeah, that's kind of where brands kind of get most of their success from, because they're able to appeal to such a large audience.
yeah, that's definitely right. I'm doing this slightly differently to Anthony. I approach this as well as I'm going to be going through 5 quicker points as well. So I'll just kick you off with my first one, and that is simply enough just to lead the call and be persuasive. So what I mean by lead the call is you'll see a lot. We kind of touched on already around the pricing, but a lot of the time the client will kind of take over and try, and then basically they get to do the deal in their terms. So you can never be scared of losing a client. That is one thing you have to say. You cannot be scared of losing them, because the minute you become scared of losing that potential client, and I don't mean just don't really reflect on mistakes and don't try and lose them, but don't care. But so much, don't be scared of it, because then you are just going to be pushed into a corner by the client, and really they'll get a deal that's amazing for them, but you'll certainly lose out of it. So yeah, you just need to lead the meeting to make sure that you actually, in leading the meeting, you need to be persuasive. And what I mean by that is you need to have pretty much counterpoints to their counterpoints. Don't take the original no. Like it has to be 2 or 3 consistent no's, which as soon as they say no, you need to be persuasive and see the reason why they said no the first time. Because
Yeah.
90% of the time, the first reason they've said no is something that you can actually solve, that you haven't
Mm.
explained well in your first messaging, or they haven't
Hmm.
interpreted properly. So yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I completely agree with you, Callum. So I think that kind of links to the point of authority. You need to take charge,
yeah, it does.
and
Yeah,
especially when selling, you have to come across confident. And one thing when it comes to selling, you have to know what you're selling, know your craft. Because if you're not confident in what you sell, how are you going to sell it?
yeah, that was one of my following points, Anthony. So,
Uh,
shall I just quickly nail that point now then? So
yeah,
it's basically, as I said, believe in what you're selling. You need to believe that you're benefiting the client. You can't be like, oh, do you know what I'm feeling? You can't just be in it for the money, for instance. You can't be like, I'm just going to get a quick $500 from this sale, or £500 in our money. You need to be more based around actually, we're going to be providing perfect value for them, almost a more philanthropic approach, if you will. And you need to be like, I know this person's life, business, whatever, it's going to be better, easier, like higher quality, whatever you're trying to sell. So yeah, you can't be taken away from the client. You need to be benefiting them, and to actually to believe in, and you need to believe in your product. Because if you believe you're selling a load of rubbish, then your sales pitch is going to be a load of rubbish, because there will just be no persuasive, there'll be no real belief behind your voice. People can pick up on that. People
mm,
can easily pick up when you're just basically trying to sell them and you just don't know what you're talking about. So it's really important to, and to be honest, what I'd say to all the listeners now if you feel this is you and you realize you're selling something that you do not believe in, stop selling it and switch to something else, because it's not going to happen. And I find also you will not enjoy that process either. So
Mhm.
believe in what you're selling to enjoy the process, which I think is huge for selling. Enjoy the chase and the rush of getting the client in, but also enjoy, not so much enjoy, but make sure you're providing large amounts of value to the client and you're giving more than you take away. And then your sales pitch will be miles better, just because the confidence you'll be able to reflect onto the consumer.
Yeah, no, 100%. If you know what you're selling, like any questions you get, you'll be able to bounce an answer out really quickly and confidently. And that's the main thing when it comes to selling. If you don't know what you're selling or you don't believe in it, like who you selling to? You can't even sell to yourself. How do you expect to sell to someone else?
Yeah, exactly. All right,
Yeah.
Anthony, do you want to move on to your next point, please, mate?
Yeah, so my next point is using emotion. So as humans, like our whole brain is made up of just emotional connections, and everything we feel is emotion. I kind of mentioned it before with one of the principles. I said that people don't buy the product, they buy the experience, the emotion.
Yeah,
And when you're selling, you have to have an emotional feel. And that's why a lot of marketers, when it comes to copywriting, they say link everything to stories. Tell a story. Don't just sell the product.
yeah,
Yeah, when you're writing copywriting, you got to sell with stories, emotions, with like happiness, with either sadness, with hurt, with anger. You can't sell with benefits like free shipping or fast delivery. People don't buy that a product because it's coming in 2 days. They buy a product because they're gonna look a certain way, or they're gonna have certain teeth, or they're gonna have certain hair, or like they're not gonna have spots anymore. That's why people buy. They buy the confidence of the product. They don't buy the benefits of the product. And that's
yeah,
why I think like emotional like relevance or emotional linking to a human like with selling tops anything.
yeah. It's just absolutely key to have high EQ, emotional intelligence, when selling. Because the fact of the matter is, you need to make sure as well you understand the mannerisms, kind of the meaning behind the words to the consumer as well. To be able to really sell to them, and you need to sell to them on, as Ant said, on the emotional level. The fact of the matter is, most people don't buy into cold facts. So we're going to get you 2 times ROAS, for instance, or 2 times ROI, I should say. For instance, when creating an email or not so much cold calling, but calling a prospect for the first time, I don't tend to mention our services. I tend to mention how we can benefit that person's life. The services might not even be till the second email, or they won't know exactly what we do to the meeting sometimes. Because that allows us, and then that allows you as well in person or over Zoom at the moment, to convey that what we talked about, your confidence in the product, which is harder to do over email. So yeah, gone a bit off topic, but yeah, high IQ is just, it's just, yeah, agreed with Anthony, the most key thing you need. People
Did you
are
mean EQ
intelligent.
there?
Pardon?
Did you mean EQ?
Yeah, what did I say?
IQ.
I didn't mean EQ, yes, correct, mate.
But yeah, yeah, that's one of my points basically. So emotional linking to selling, like it will beat anything. And whether you do this or not, whether you tell stories in your copywriting or you don't, that's kind of up to you. But you will see like your success or like your conversions or your click-through rates absolutely skyrocket when you use emotion compared to anything else.
Yeah, I often talk about in emails, I'll give this little secret away. I talk often, I'll talk about a business, when we're selling to, especially we know people are business owners, we talk about the business being their baby. And you need to get, like you would with a child, you need to be able to generate, you need to help grow that business and help nurture it and improve it, to make sure that when it's more mature, it's going to be guaranteed to have great foundations to be successful.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, we also talk about, as with your children, you want them to have the best results in life possible. And this, again, it's the same as the business. And this I found has been extremely helpful in converting compared to just saying cold facts.
Yeah. So yeah, Callum, shall I move on to my final point?
Please do. I've got a few points to follow, so yeah, let's do your points, then we can discuss mine. That makes sense.
Okay, that's perfect. So my final point is that when it comes to selling, I think a lot of people forget this, that it's like a two-way street. So what people usually do, they just, as marketers or sales people, they're the only ones doing or like giving the information or doing like the talking, I guess, in the relationship between a salesperson and a customer. But what you need to do, you need to listen to the market. If you market something to people or you try to sell to them and they aren't convinced about it, or they don't buy into it or whatever, or they purchase someone else's product or service, you need to find out why that happened. And this is kind of learning from mistakes, or learning from, I guess, failures. They're not really failures. I would say they're little like learning experiences. But in selling and marketing, you need to learn from everything you do. So if you put out a message or campaign on, say, Facebook ads or whatever, and it doesn't work, you need to find out why it doesn't work. Most people, they'll just turn off a campaign, delete it, maybe not do it again, especially as like a business owner. They'll just delete it, be like, digital marketing doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. But no, like, you need to learn from your mistakes and you need to see what you're not doing right. Cool,
Yeah.
it's good to know what you have to do right. But sometimes when you think you're doing everything right and it turns out you're not, you need to learn why you didn't. And again, like I said, it's a two-way street. So you need to listen to your customers. You need to know what they want. And yeah.
Yeah, also the other point I'd make on listening, if you're having a meeting with a client, you need to make sure they should be speaking 55%, 60% of the time, especially in the initial meeting. You really need to be hearing their problems. There's a whole, well, I don't know why we haven't talked about this. I'm going to get onto this in a minute. Um, I've always explained to how I've always taught Anthony selling is about PPIO, which is point, oh shit, what is it again, Anthony? Problem, pain, impact, opportunity. Shall we start that again?
Yeah.
So yeah, to get onto point. So for listening, it really needs to be, especially in a client meeting, it needs to be mainly the client speaking, probably 55, 45, 60, 40. And that's key. And I always, was you really need to discover the client's PPIO. That's why I always teach, how I start by teaching selling when I've talked to other people such as Anthony. So PPIO is pain, problem, impact, opportunity. And the thing is, often what needs to be recognized, especially in B2B, but this is important in B2C as well, it's not, the impact isn't always what you thought it was. So, for instance, how I was told this, and part of me being taught sales was, so the pain might be you have a hole in your, so the problem is you have a hole in your shoe. The pain is you keep on getting water in it. The impact of this is you keep on having wet socks and have to buy new ones. And then the opportunity cost is someone needs to pay for it for their wedding. So, and that wedding thing sounds completely out of the blue, but often people living in real life, as everyone is, their opportunity cost is going to be completely different from the impact. It's not just, oh, we're sponging more money than they should on socks, and then they have other important aspects of their life they need to take care of. And this is what I was talking about earlier. You need to understand that your product is going to make people's life easier in multiple ways. Yeah, so definitely follow the idea of PPIO. On that, so please write in as well if you have any questions around PPIOs. I mean, do Google it, research it. It is key. Honestly, you need to understand it. The other thing you need to understand is GOT. So basically, GOT is, there's goal, organizational, and tactical. So basically, you need to make sure you're talking to the correct person, because you don't want to waste time blabbering away to someone who's just not important or won't pass on your message, like a gatekeeper. You need to have tactics as well to get straight through the gatekeeper to be able to speak to the real person. A very good way of doing this is using the person you want to speak to's first name, because then it seems more like a personal call rather than saying Mr. Da Da Da, like Mr. Elias. You're better off saying Anthony, as that sounds more like a personal call. Mr. Elias sounds more sales and more likely to be rejected by the housekeeper. Sorry, housekeeper, gatekeeper. And you don't want to leave issues with the gatekeeper either, like messages. You want to make sure the messages have got through and follow up. And do you agree with that much?
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, again, I think this kind of links to like the human feel of selling. Like, you don't want to sound like a robot. When you're typing out an email, you don't just want to sell, you want to tell a story, you want to sell a feeling, and you want to have that emotional connection with people. And yeah, that kind of links back to my point of emotion, where you have to kind of trigger them feelings and experiences.
Yeah.
And obviously, by saying someone's first name, it makes it 100 times more personal than saying someone's surname.
Yeah.
And
Okay. So I've
especially
got
in schools, or like you're trying to sell a service, like this will be massive, especially in emails, because if they see their first
PPC is
name,
huge.
yeah, of course, because if they see their first name, they're going to be like, okay, wait, does this guy know me? Like they'll open the email straight away. But if they see, oh, Mr. Hayward or whatever, they're going to
Yeah.
realize, okay, this is just another person selling to me. No point of even opening it.
I'm telling you this as a CEO. I'm much more likely to read an email that says "Hello, Callum" compared to "Hello, Mr. Hayward."
Yeah,
So
no, of course. It gives it that personal feel. When in selling, you have to be a person. You have to be human.
yeah, and
People, again, I'm gonna batter this point in this podcast. People don't buy products or services. They buy emotions. They buy feelings, and they buy
they
experiences.
buy into you.
Exactly. They buy the person.
And
Like you have to sell yourself. It's
it's
not
worth
just
saying
selling
as
the
well.
product. You're selling yourself.
Yeah, both me and Anti executives, so we get tens, sometimes, yeah, definitely plenty, more than enough emails or LinkedIn messages or whatever daily trying to sell to us. And to be honest, 99% of them I don't read,
Yeah.
just as lack of time. But for the ones I do read, I do just generally find that you can. I'm even going to be polite, even if it's a product I don't need. If I think it's a good sales email, they're being polite as well. I'm going to be polite then and reply back in saying, "Oh, sorry, we're not interested. Good luck," or something like that, and not waste their time having to do follow ups. Whereas with other people, if I just read this and go, "Well, this is a load of rubbish," I'm just going to click off it and not look at it again. I'm probably not. And if I see another email come up with their name, I'm not reading that again. So first impressions there are also key. So then to
Mm.
just nail my final 2 points, you need to make sure the people you're selling to are interested. And as simple as that may sound, it's something a lot of people seem to not realize. You can't try and sell to everyone. That is fact of the matter. You cannot sell to everyone. Even something like digital marketing, which we in AMP sell, which is a very broad service, it cannot be sold to everyone. So you need to quickly filter out the people who aren't interested and keep in the people who are interested, so that all your efforts go into people where there might actually be results. And as part of that point as well, I'd also say become very, very, very comfortable with the word no. And do not take it personally. Do not take it as an attack on your business. Might Most people will say no. You could be telling them, "Oh, this is going to allow you to become God," and most people would say no. Or like the best thing in the world. Some people wouldn't want that, but the best thing in the world, and people are going to say no. A lot, probably half of people. Because people are definitely very much uncertainty avoidant as well. I'll go on to this on my next point. So just don't be offended. Just keep on going. Don't
Yeah.
stop. And also maybe have a reflection. Go, oh, reread the email. Oh, maybe this could be slightly better. But also, I don't use the one email, one call rule. Just as it hasn't worked even like 5 times, who's to say it won't work a sixth time? So if you send out 20 emails, let's say, or 200 emails, and you've got nothing, then there's something wrong with the messaging. But if so you need to have a big test group there. Use A/B testing as well, or split testing, whatever you want to call it. That's key. And my final point, Anthony, quickly, do you have any views on that?
Yeah, I was gonna say about so you need to know that the people are interested in your product or whatever you're selling. And yeah, that is super important, because imagine selling to the wrong audience, or an audience that doesn't even want your product. And then you're
Wasting
thinking like,
resources and time.
yeah, you're wasting like everything, resources, time, effort. So you need to make sure you're selling to the right people, because if you don't, it will seem like you're doing everything wrong. But in fact, you may be doing a lot of like the things right. you might have like all the 7 principles, you might have good messaging, etc.,
Yeah,
but you
exactly.
might not getting any results. So
This is
that's why market research, audience research is super important. You need to know that you're selling to the right people before you start spending any money.
for instance, with advertising, obviously, like if you're doing Facebook ads or something or Google ads, you need to develop a pixel that allows you to target the right people, and that takes a decent amount of resources and time to develop that. So I think that's a perfect example there. And my final point is I'm going to mention the 25 cognitive biases. So I'm not going to go through all 25. This would be another hour to the podcast. But there's basically three actually I really want to talk about. So the first one is about reward punishment. This is the super response tendency. And basically it's about achieving incentives or disincentives for people. So an incentive might be, oh, our product has, as we talked about earlier, like limited time. It could be 10% off, or it could be like another great way to sell. And this is one of the first ways was taught to sell as well, is on by one of my a great CEO, and that is pretty much based off fear. Talk about what their competitors are achieving with you and what their competitors can achieve or are achieving, and don't be afraid to say, "Oh, I'll go over the road and chat to them." Let's say there's one phone shop here, another phone shop over the road. Don't be afraid to say, "Oh, I've just signed up that phone shop" or something like that, as this will really create a fear response and really provide a disincentive for them in the fear, which is then providing an incentive in them to buy. So, and arguably, it's not the most moral way of doing it, but that fear is likely, especially if you're like, oh, your competitors could achieve this, 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 but you're not going to miss out on all that. People are likely to at least give you the time of day to listen to you and what their competitors are doing. Is the honest truth there. So that's one of them. And obviously incentives, as I said, 2 for 1, that kind of stuff if you're selling B2C, depending on what you're selling. Um, yes, that's very important. So I just had a little computer problem there, but it's back to now. The other one is people have a lot of doubt and avoidancy tendency, basically. So if they're unsure about a decision, they're likely to quickly make a decision. And oftentimes, if they're thinking, I could buy this, I could want 50-50, most of the time they'll go with the 50%, as people are often risk averse or uncertainty avoidant, as what's his name? As Hertzberg talks about. Is it Hertzberg? It's not Hertzberg.
No,
Got
I
the
think it
person's
is.
name, unfortunately.
Oh no, Hofstede. Sorry,
That's it,
Hofstede.
Hosted. Ah,
Yeah.
that's Hosted talks about. Hertzberg's the motor, is the hygiene and isn't it factors. So as Hofstede talks about. So it's just key to make sure that people provide them with enough resources and everything that they're going to feel safe with you. As people, and also as Anthony said, people have a reluctancy to change. So just make sure that, so they need real incentive to change. And even though there's also another one called the curiosity tendency, often people will be curious in your product, but they're very unlikely to go for it. So you need to provide a good foundation for them to step on and therefore be able to take on your product. Yes, that, I mean, if you want to, please go Google the 25 cognitive biases. That would be amazing and great for you. Unfortunately, we cannot go through them right now. Okay, so sorry, we had some technical difficulties, but we're back now. So what I was talking about was curiosity. So a lot of people are going to go and be interested and look at your product and service. Maybe you're having a meeting with you, but what conversion rate, Anthony, compared to traffic is what, 5%, maybe lower, maybe 2 or 3?
Yeah, around 2 to 3%.
Exactly. So just that's something you have to be very wary of. And just as a meeting hasn't led to a conversion, doesn't necessarily make it a waste of time. You do need to have a look at as well what's gone wrong in that meeting. Was a lot of the time not a lot of the time, but some of the time, it could have been a mistake you've made or like something you could have rectified, pushback from them that you could have had a response to. So yeah, I think. And any last points on that?
No, I mentioned my 3 points, and I think that if you do want to go over the podcast again and then make some notes, it would be very useful because we did mention quite a lot in this podcast. So yeah,
Yeah,
everything we mentioned is really it's an integral part of selling. And
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's all vital. I mean,
yeah,
I'd argue we've only just scratched the surface at the moment.
yeah,
Which,
exactly. Yeah,
but for people, especially beginners in selling, this should be more than enough information. This is information that's taken me like years to learn some of it,
yeah, yeah.
and you're getting
This is
half
a
an
really
hour.
good like foundation and starting point. It gives you topics to actually research and then dive into, and then you'll start to see the amount of depth that goes into selling.
So that brings us to the end of the podcast. So please, can you leave a review of what you think of the podcast, and also bring us any questions you have or any topics you feel we should discuss. And yeah, and also please check out Poseidon Marketing if you're interested in social media marketing services, and Google Ads. We offer both a consultancy package as well as bespoke full service packages where we carry out every single aspect of it for you. So please check out our website, and I guarantee you, if you reference the podcast, you'll be in a call with either me or Anthony. So yeah, that'd be great. Thank you very much, and it's been
Yeah,
great doing this podcast with you again.
yeah. Again, it was great with you sharing our knowledge experience, and I hope everyone did enjoy. It was a great podcast to film, and on to the next.
And as Anne actually mentioned as well, very quickly in the tiny bit we've had to cut off was there was unfortunately again some computer issues. I don't know what's going on there. We need to fix that. I'll get IT to sort that after this. But basically anyway, Anne was saying, please go through this again as well and take down notes, especially if you're a beginner. This is stuff we've learned across many years that you could be learning in half an hour. So it will just save you so much time. So it's really worth investing it in. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next week for the next podcast. Bye.